All right, everyone, welcome back to the Leadership Locker. This is my second Corona recording. Thought I was going to take a break, and I'm like, why would I take a break? So last week I had my Aunt Gordon TikTok phenomenon, so to speak, on, and now I have another creative, and I love interviewing creatives because, my guest is probably going to tell you the creative life can be a lonely life, especially if you're
It
not
is.
surrounded by a lot. But why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. My name is Didier, Chief Creative Officer of Urban Misfit Ventures. We also are known more appropriately on the internet as MK Misfits. We do, media agency work, events, private events, fun video stuff that we really want to do at the end of the day, which is cool. We get to flex our creative muscles, so to speak, and come up with wild off the wall ideas. And so far it's been pretty successful.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is when I go, for example, to your LinkedIn, and I know you're everywhere, but I see Chief Creative Officer. Okay. So my audience usually tailors to transitioning service members and veteran entrepreneurs, but it really encompasses everybody. So, like, what is a Chief Creative Officer for people who are not familiar with that and they're used to the CFO, COO, that kind of C-suite executives?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something that for us, we're taking I don't want to say case by case, but I can't Google Chief Creative Officer and say that that's exactly what my duties align with, just because we are a smaller company. We're still, within that first 5 years. So we're learning as we go. Obviously, now with the virus going on, things are changing, ever evolving. So, for me, a lot of it is day to day, just overseeing a lot of the creative projects, making sure that everything is going out on time, everything's looking good, QCing things, helping shoot if we need extra hands on set, helping edit if we need the extra hands on editing. From a personal side, I do a lot of work with the company on the Brand Accelerator program. That's kind of my area of expertise, so to speak, just because I am on social media as much as I am and
Yeah.
familiar with LinkedIn and other platforms. So a lot of my time is focused on filming those videos with our clients and editing them as well. And, but whatever needs to be done that day,
Yeah.
call me in.
So as a creative, and look, like, this is me being transparent with you, like, I didn't realize I was creative. I don't even know if I'm a creative right now, but I have a podcast. I love to create content. I make a lot of content. I do very much things along the lines of what you do. However, I'm not surrounded by other creatives like you are. So what is that like? Is there ever a dynamic, or is it just super, like, ridiculously amazing ideas coming from the sky all the time?
Yeah, there's a beacon that's above our office, kind of like the Batman symbol. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It's cool actually. It's different because we always look back at when we first started, and Q had initially pulled me on to do this project, and then we got Brema on board, and then we got Izzy, and that's the four founders. But what's really cool is Brema and I being the two creatives. When we first started, Brema had a very, I don't want to say polarizing like it's a bad thing, but he had a very polarized creative mind than what I had, and he had very different practices than what I had. And what we started to notice after like a year was that we kind of created one cohesive mold of what that creative vision was. And
Mhm.
obviously we were creating a business, so we had to kind of come up with what that was going to look like. But it was really cool seeing Brema, who works in his own way very much so, and me, who has my own way of doing things very much. I'm lots of content, short and sweet. Let's get it out. Let's get a lot of it out. Brema's very much like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it until I'm happy with it. And that's when it's going to go out. So
Mhm.
it was really cool to see different editing styles, different shooting styles, how much we learned from one another. And,
Yeah.
it was really cool to do that. And obviously, we are a company, so we have CEO, somebody that does finance, we have these roles, but when we're all sitting around the same table, everybody's input is just as valuable no matter what position they're in. And I think that's really what people easily forget to think about, is just how important it is to get ideas from people that maybe don't work behind an editing computer all day.
I could not agree more. You need a fresh set of eyes on it. Just to tell you how they're going to receive it, because you never know. Like, that's how a lot of people might receive it. So let me ask you this: how much pressure is it as a creative to be creative?
Constant.
Mm-hmm.
It's constant and it's a lot. But like, you have to think too, it's very easy, I think, from a creative standpoint, to look at what your audience is going to say. But I think it's very easy, albeit difficult to maintain when you get into that mode of like, I'm putting this out for me, because like as a creator, you're literally making the content for other people. So it's kind
Yes.
of taboo to be like selfish in that regard, because you're like, well, I'm making it for other people. Why do I need to make it for me? Or why should I make it for me? But at the same time, if you're not enjoying learning, challenging from what you're doing, then there's never going to be any growth, for one. But two, are they really going to like it long term?
Mm-hmm. So Sarah Dishi, if you're familiar with her,
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
mean, she's amazing.
Yeah.
I saw her speak at Vid Summit a while ago, and I met her a couple times, and she goes, one for me, one for them, because
Hmm.
she went through this thing where she was just vlogging constantly, and it just became exhausting. And obviously, there at some point, this is not fun. So one for me, one
Right.
for them is certainly a good approach. So you guys got this company together. Let's go rewind a little bit and how this formed. And by the way, I interviewed Jackie Ermes not long ago,
Hmm.
and I'm like, and then obviously I know Shay, and I'm like, what the hell's going on in Milwaukee where there's like this hotbed of fucking creatives, like just
Yeah.
like coming out of the woodworks and doing. I mean, it's just so unsuspecting. But like, how did this
Right.
all happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think tip of the hat, no pun intended, to Q on a lot of it. He was kind of the first person that was like, look, LinkedIn video is a thing. He was in between businesses too, and he just had already been documenting other platforms, and LinkedIn was at the time just the next platform to start trying, and
Mm-hmm.
it worked.
Yeah.
So I think, if you look at it, there's no way to tell, but
Yeah.
like I'm not trying to make any claims, but Milwaukee is probably the number one LinkedIn video city, just
Mm,
because of, you've got all of these amazing creators, and not only that, but now people that we're working with that are also in Milwaukee. So we're kind of,
exactly.
helping ourselves out a little bit in that regard. But it's just really cool because it's Milwaukee. We have nothing. We are Chicago's baby child to an extent. It's just, if you're coming to Milwaukee, you're like, well, why? The Chicago is just an hour and a half away. Nobody really comes to Milwaukee or does anything in Milwaukee. So it's cool to have that little stamp on the map in the world now, especially in a platform like LinkedIn, where it's like people are starting to notice. There's definitely some attention coming around Milwaukee,
Yep.
and I think it's starting to show.
I've watched it and I've seen it, and I'm just like, wow, this is nuts. And the first thing, like, you guys have obviously endured success and are doing better and better as time goes on. I feel like there's always an inclination to like, okay, where can I go? Where is all the attention? Where is everything? But I used to live in Austin, Texas, and they're obsessed with keeping Austin weird, right? Like, it is
Right.
like a badge of honor to not have and be surrounded by everything, but to make it, special there. Do you guys ever feel like, okay, like, when are we going to LA? Or are you like, this is it? Like, this is it, but we have a lot to build here.
I think it's kind of a mixture of both. The beautiful thing with being a content agency is that we're not limited to just being in Milwaukee. So we get to travel for most of
Hmm.
our clients. We've done clients in France, we've done clients in LA, we've done clients in New York. Like, we're able to simply take a plane and go do these things. So it's beneficial, I think, for us. And obviously Milwaukee has its pros and cons, but it's a very nice community, and it's a small community. Everybody kind of knows everybody, so we're able to really hone in on helping out the local side and helping Milwaukee grow, while also still being able to help the business grow by doing all of these other clients outside of the city as well.
For sure. So I want to talk about video. I'm obsessed with video, and just a really quick background. It's so impolite to talk about myself on the podcast, but look, really quick. I was
It's
a
your show at
Marine.
the end of the
Yeah, I was a
day.
Marine for 17 years. I retired. I worked at a big retailer that you get all your stuff from. Didn't like that at all for 2 years. I quit, became an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to do photography. Ended up being like, this is I feel like you need to get struck by lightning in order to really pop in photography. So I'm like, let me start making videos, of businesses in this small town I was living in while I was living with my in-laws. I was like, okay. But then I got in touch with some people at VaynerMedia, and Claude Silver, the chief art officer over there, she
Yep.
was like literally my first client, and we made a bunch of content. And then I realized, like, I'm just asking her stupid freaking questions about millennials and the workplace. Like, then we just really started talking, and then it started to pop. So what is your take on the importance of video and how you can actively and consistently tell stories, and why does it have so much more power than anything else?
I think it's because it takes a whole different approach to a conversation. What always boggled me, and kudos to Milwaukee being so small, but when we sat down with people in meetings, the first thing they would say is, I feel like I already know you because I watch all your videos. And that's
Nice.
something that you just can't get with every medium. A photo, like, cool, but it's one moment. Audio, even sometimes it's like, I get your personality, I get your tone, I get all of this, but I can't read your face, I can't do all of these different
Totally.
things. So there's always pros and cons, and even video has its downsides, obviously,
Yep.
but there's definitely something to be said about the relationship they are able to kind of build before having an inbox full of people that want to spend 15 minutes on the phone, when really you could essentially do most of that work just by posting videos and get people to know you that way a little bit.
No, I completely agree. So then you have a personal branding accelerator, and I specialize in personal branding as well. And I like to say I just have this ability. Sometimes when I'm with people, not sometimes. This is what happens, man. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I unwrap them, right? I just want them to
Mm-hmm.
just be themselves. When it comes to personal branding and as itself, and with video. Um, you and I are probably in the same camp, but why do you think people are reluctant, and how do you think they can kind of get over some of the fears they have associated with maybe coming across as indulgent or narcissistic?
I think a lot of times is people's want, need, desire, whatever you want to call it, to be as perfectly scripted as possible.
Yeah.
They have the script in their head, and they're trying to deliver via recording a video. And whether it's, why am I talking to an inanimate object, what's going on, the fear of the situation, that it doesn't come out quite as it's in their head, and then there's doubt, and then there's, well, I don't know if I like how I said this, and I'm not sure if that came across properly. And the first thing we say to everybody is, if you mess up, you mess up. If you fumble a word, you fumble a word. If you look on the internet, Gary Vee fumbles
Oh
words,
yeah.
Casey Neistat fumbles words. No creator, unless they are literally going to be reading from a script, and even then, who knows, is going to be perfect. And the beautiful thing, especially with LinkedIn, and I hate using this as an excuse, but there's copy, right? Like, the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is how important the copy is. So if you forget to mention something, I know my problem is the second I hit upload on a YouTube video, I watch it back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot like 30 different things to say in
Yes.
this video. So
Yes.
there's copy. There's other ways that if you forget your cadence, or you forget exactly how you wanted to put something, you can appropriate in the copy on a LinkedIn specific site, at least.
No, I completely agree. So I like to say, and I'd like your take on this, is I like to say you don't have to work on your personal brand. It's already there. It just needs to be put out. How do you, what do you think of that? And then how do you tell people like to just start? I mean, how do you get them to just go?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that point. I think what people forget is that they aren't building a brand, because 90% of the time it is already built, or what people forget to realize is that they are their personal brand. It's so easy to say, well, I need to become this persona, or I need to build this website where it's hashtag whatever, like that's part of it, but that isn't it.
Yes.
What people forget is that the person that you are communicating to the world on these videos is the brand, whether you know it or not, whether you say something weird or not, like, it's reflected in every video that you post. So I think that's what people forget. And I think, like, just to get started, there's different, like, I like to read people first and see like where their hesitation is, because a lot of times it's just like, well, I'm just gonna, it's different for everybody, right? So sometimes I can just set up the camera, hit record, walk away, and they can talk, and then I can just cut it up. Or sometimes it's, even if whoever is having a conversation, all right, just stand over my shoulder while I'm filming, just capture the conversation. It's different for everybody. So
It
it's
is.
one of those things where you kind of have to, how can we help with the fear? And I think, like, it's the understanding that you're not going to get buff from one workout. You're not going to
Yeah.
immediately become healthy by eating one salad, right? So you're not going to make the perfect video your first video. And I think if the easier it is for people to kind of grasp that, I think the easier it is for people to say, okay, I can release. And then what you run into, and I still do this, so I'm not at all bickering at anybody that we work with or anybody that I see videos from, but there's a definite on-camera voice from me personally. The second I hit record, I'm just like this happy-go-lucky, boom,
Yeah.
here's the information right at you sort of person. Maybe I'm not, I mean, I'm still all those things when I'm off camera, but there's definitely okay, I'm in record mode, you know? So it's kind
Yes.
of working with people to kind of help blend who they are in that record mode, because most people have it whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, that's funny. I was walking around my house because I haven't uploaded to YouTube in like 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh man, I've just been focused on LinkedIn and everything else. So I just was making this video and just starting and stopping so I could just kind of not have to chop it up as much. And I listened back and I'm like, dude, who is that guy? Like, I'm like, sometimes I feel sometimes like so natural when I'm doing it. And then I'm like, who the hell is that? Like, what is
Yeah.
going on right now? But I completely understand. So when it comes to a personal brand, I really think something that people miss is that it's important to put what you have to offer the world out there. That's my biggest thing. Like, you have value to offer, you need to be visible. So use video. But your personal brand is an indirect way and a direct way to drive the business. What's your take on that?
I think it's something that you can't pull the carriage before the horse, if to say, like,
Yeah.
you have to understand that one drives the other and that they both have to be in cohesion sometimes. So
Mm.
it's super easy to say, okay, well, I've recorded 60 videos, how come I'm not selling yet? But it's again, it's different with everybody. Like, I hate to keep saying that, but some people need more time to build that presence. Some people are a very polarizing personality. Some, every situation is different. Some people have been doing what they're trying to sell on LinkedIn for 30 years and they know their script, they know what they do, they have their one-sheeters, they have all this information. Well, then it's, what can we talk about to help build that in?
Yes.
Sometimes people have to build out what that is because they're making videos not knowing what that is. And then, let's play with some things on video. Let's figure out what it is that you really want to do. Let's build it out as we go. And then you're already getting that exposure in the background anyway. So it's kind of a case by case thing, but I think, you have to know what it is that you want
Mm.
before you're really able to start doing the selling in most cases.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So let's talk about your journey a little bit. Tell me about when you really determined that you had this creative muscle that needed to be flexed, so to speak, and how did it evolve into collaborating with this amazing group and just blowing up?
Yeah, it kind of, I don't, it's weird because I don't think there was ever like a
Yeah.
snap the fingers moment. But what I did was I bought a Canon T3i, most people's first cameras, it seems, but to do YouTube videos, right?
Yep.
I didn't know it didn't have video autofocus. I didn't know it could. I didn't know that it was crap. Basically,
Yeah,
like, it had
yeah,
the flip out screen. I'm like, sweet, but then I didn't realize all these different things that I didn't know. So then, I'm making this push to be this YouTuber in the gaming space. This was when, for those listening, the Machinima was first around, and it was CNanners, Hutch,
yeah.
all these guys. And I was like, I can be them. I play Call of Duty. Why can't I be them? So I'm trying to do these Call of Duty commentaries and this and that. And I wasn't, I'm not all upset that it didn't work out, because I always say there's no way that I would have been mature enough to handle any sort of fame at that
100%.
time anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm totally not all upset about that it didn't work out. But, it taught me some things, how to build a social brand, how to consistently be that brand. I learned all these lessons by doing. If this doesn't work, well, why? I'm not trying to. There were times where I would try to be PewDiePie too much, or I would try to do all these things and try and, like, be somebody before I was myself. And I noticed, like, it worked for a couple videos, but then it started to, like, okay, what's this guy doing?
Yeah.
So there's always that fear and that thing and that. So then I'm like, well, crap, this thing takes photos too. So I started taking photos,
Nice.
and not really with any intent. Just, I had the camera. I'm not going to do anything else with it. Let's just start taking photos of things that I had around the house. I'm into gaming. Esports is huge now. Well,
Yeah.
was a little baby then, but
Oh man, now
even
it's yeah.
for, yeah. So I'm like, oh, let's just start taking pictures. And I started to get some traction in the esports space, and I always loved it. Like, it wasn't anything that I ever was like, I'm buying this camera so that this is my future, but it was something I was just like, I mean, I know that I'm a creative person. I know that I can't draw so clearly, like, no actual physical art is happening in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So let's do it digitally because I
Yeah.
can do the digital space. So I did, and I got some traction there, and kept building. And then eventually I
Well,
was just
one
like,
second.
this is, yeah.
1 second. So, what do you mean? This is so important. When you say you got some traction, and that can mean something different to everybody, but like, what was that for you? Like, how did you feel like, got it? Like, now
Mhm.
I'm no longer on a treadmill. Like, I am literally moving forward.
I think I noticed that when, without intending to get a sponsor for anything, I started to post pictures and companies would reach out to me. And I hate looking back on it because it was all crap. Like it wasn't good content by any means. But that was back in the very early days of like, what is influencer marketing? So it was something
Yes.
where every company wanted to throw a 10% off code at you and give you 10% kickback because it was going to help their brand at the time.
Yeah.
So that was when I really realized that, like you said, I'm on the treadmill. And then the big one was I was just at home one night, just bored, and I was playing games, and I had a Logitech keyboard and a Logitech headset,
Yep.
and the headset was red, and the keyboard was RGB, so I just made it red. And I was thinking like, okay, I'm gonna work on my composition. Like I'm not really good at taking photos at night. This camera really sucks at night shots. Like let's just see what I can make happen. And I posted it, and I'm looking back at it. My desk was all scratched up, like it
Yeah.
looks like crap, but you know, I loved it at the time.
Yeah.
And Logitech did too. They sent me a message that night, like, "Hey, we love this photo. We'd love to work together." And that was when I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, this is something.
Seriously? That is
This is
crazy.
something."
But that reaffirms your point
Yeah,
earlier about how, when we're on video or someone's crafting their brand and they try and have it perfect. Like, you look at your desk as all messed up and it could have been so much better. It's like it was very real to them. It was very relatable to them, and they're like, that's probably 1,000 people's desks right now,
right.
so it probably resonated. So that's really, really awesome. So let me talk then a little bit more. Actually, sorry. So you got that, and then how did things evolve?
I think it just snowballed a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I then I got smart, and then like, okay, well, I'm this brand, and I went from YouTube to Twitch to YouTube to Mixer to YouTube to Twitch, and all this stuff, but always something like in that general sphere. So I'm like using all these different connections that I'm getting, and audiences that I'm getting, and I never wanted to be that person. I was just like throwing sponsorships down people's throats. So it was kind
Yep.
of one of those things where it was like, is the shaker cup in the background? Am I wearing the hoodie? Wait for people to kind of probe and then sell. And, there was times where I would sell too much, and I would notice immediately how, much my following and, viewership dipped, and then I'd,
Hmm.
stop, and then it would come back up and all this stuff. So it
Interesting.
was definitely a situation of kind of learn as you go.
Hmm. And then with the company, how did you guys? And I've heard the same thing about Q before. Actually, yeah. Just if you could just, for those
Mhm.
who don't know who are listening, when you say Q, can you say who that is, and then how he kind of formed this like Avengers right here?
Yeah, so if you've seen a black hat on LinkedIn, that's Q. Just Q as he goes by, tag just Q. Yeah, Q's an awesome guy. Definitely look him up. I'm sure he'll be tagged in most of what's going on. So
Hmm. And then so how did you guys meet? And then how did this happen, the Urban Misfits?
for sure. So he had followed me on Twitter, and I was like, cool, somebody in Milwaukee. Twitter was very much like a gaming space for me. So I didn't really know anybody from Milwaukee on social media. I didn't talk to anybody from Milwaukee on social media because I live about 20, 30 minutes north. So I'm not really in the city a lot,
Yeah.
especially at that time. So for me, it was like, well, yeah, cool, somebody local, whatever. And then, we got talking and this and that. And he's like, I really like your work. And there was this networking event that we were both going to. And I'm like, sweet, well, let's chat while we're there. And, I had no idea. I didn't have any thought about what he wanted to talk about. But, I was like, sweet, somebody that's interested, that's local. Let's, finally somebody that I have that's a friend here,
Yep.
sort of thing, not just friends online all the time. So we met at the networking event and talked a little bit, met up a couple times for coffee after that. And, I'm just absorbing what I can out of him because I know that he's a businessman and this entrepreneur. And that's something that I kind of always in the back of my head wanted to do. But I thought it would be very much like I would just make enough money doing Twitch or
Yeah.
doing whatever that would be what it is. But,
Yep.
I never knew that there was more in the business side of it. So, we're absorbing off of each other. And eventually he's, you know, got me onto LinkedIn and said, let's just start making videos. this is a great platform and I make videos. I'm not afraid to be in front of a camera. So for me, it was kind of a slam dunk.
Yeah.
And he kind of taught me the best practices at the time. And,
Yeah.
it was that. And I made one video with him in it, and overnight, 5,000 views, 100 likes, 50 comments. And I'm just like, this is the first time in 6-7 years of doing social media in one way or another that I'm waking up with stuff to reply to. Not
Yes.
to say that there was never that before, but it definitely wasn't to the key of 100 likes and 50 comments
Yep.
and 5,000 views. Like I've
Yep.
never had that overnight hit, and I'm just like, this is interesting.
Yep.
So I made one the next day, and then the
I
next
love it.
day, and
I
then
love it.
90 days was kind of what I ended up doing. And he was like, I've told hundreds of people to do this, and the most I see people do is like 2 days or a week. It's
Yep.
like, I've never seen somebody put this much dedication in it. I like what you do. I think you're creative. I have this idea. Let's do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the story.
That's crazy, man. I love hearing stories like that, because when you talk about, you guys met and you're at a networking event, like there's zero chance you said to yourself, not only am I going to link up and do business with this guy, but he seems like the type of person who collects the dots and then connects the dots, is what I like to say. And
Yeah.
then here you guys all are, and you're just doing amazing work, but there's no way you could have predicted that you would have been getting some of the things you need, and vice versa across the board. So last question in the interest of time is, you're on Twitch, you're on LinkedIn. Are you on Instagram?
Yep.
You're on Twitter. You're everywhere you need to be. How does someone listening to this say, how the hell am I supposed to be everywhere all the time? How do they combat that?
I actually really like this question because I have the answer, because it came to mind, I want to say like yesterday, because I just started now writing on Medium too, right?
Nice.
So I'm thinking about it, and I'm just like, I'm doing all of these things, and how do I keep up with everything, and how do I organize everything? But what I really came up with is, I'm on all these different platforms because for me, and this doesn't work for everybody, but for me, I like having different ways to express myself. So for
Yes.
me, Twitter is that place where I just put short thoughts or,
Yep.
something I'm working on just for people to absorb, see, retweet, whatever. Instagram is my place to put my photography work mostly. I put videos on there. I do live and creative social media stuff there too, but really that's where I can take a photo, edit it, and say, this is the photo I'm proud of. Here, look at it, or amazing life moment, whatever. Then Twitch is my place to socialize, right? We're in quarantine right now, so it's a little bit harder to socialize. So Twitch for me is that place where I have people that I have phone numbers for, that I talk to on a regular basis from Twitch just over the years, because that's just how I built friends at that time.
Yep.
YouTube is my place where I can say, okay, I had this really cool creative idea, let's make it happen. LinkedIn is my place where I can be that face, that part of the brand, that part of the business, and help grow the company in that regard. Medium is my place where I can take some time, type things out, script, type out a thought, but not just like, okay, I want to record this video and then record the video. I can think about it. I can organize it. I can make it look pretty, whatever. And then, my wife and I have a podcast. Our company has a podcast. That's a place for me to just talk, because I just love talking. So for me, it's kind of like each platform, it seems like it's overwhelming, but each platform allows me to kind of work a little bit differently.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed, but no one here, including myself, is saying that you have to do all these. But I think what Eric just explained was like, take your pick. Like you might just fall in love with Twitter and TikTok and call it a day. Maybe everything about you, the way you write and the way you record, is short and sweet, and you have no intention of putting long form content on YouTube, and you don't want to put any great insightful articles on Medium, and you don't want to record any business related videos for LinkedIn, and that's fine. But if you have an itch in all those areas, then you already know where to go, which I think is like one of the best things. So thank you very much for that. So Eric, where can we find you and follow you and all that good stuff? Would love to make sure people get in touch.
For sure. So my personal handle is didslive, DIDSLIVE, everywhere. That's just everywhere. Company is either Urban Misfit Ventures on most platforms, or MKE Misfits on like Twitter, like, Instagram, stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, best of luck, and thanks for taking the time. I know we all have time on our hands, but that doesn't mean you're not busy. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.